Hello everyone and welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I'm John. I am the host here. You guys, you are YouTube, you are Patreon, you are everybody who wants to know the answer to this week's question. Are we getting closer to shit hitting the fan? So that is the question. Are we getting closer or further, from shit hitting the fan? So, every Saturday I address this question. And this week was just piled full of events, things happening across the entire spectrum of world events. Now, typically, just days before Christmas. It's just days before Christmas. The markets are calm. Politics is tame. The world, they're looking forward to having a nice eggnog laced with a couple of ounces of scotch to help deal with all the relatives that are visiting. But not this year. Not this year. This year, we have got a firestorm of activity happening. So I'm going to cover it in this video, and I'm going to tell you, if you want to go into depth on a lot of these topics with me, you have to do it Monday through Friday on Patreon. It's $2 a month. That is all I ask. And I challenge anyone to find that much entertainment for that little amount of money. Anyways, I do want to thank everyone who does sponsor the Prepared Mind channel. And the preparedmind.club, C-L-U-B, through Patreon, because that provides us with a safety net. Because one of the subjects this week is censorship. Censorship and information control. Fascinating that this week it's announced that Facebook is going to release some sort of cryptocurrency. They're a little late to the game, but to me, it bespeaks of their desire to get into our lives even more and extract even more information. It's amazing to me that they would even bother saying they're going to ask for more business from us by introducing a cryptocurrency, because just this week, Facebook got in trouble yet again for letting advertisers have access to private conversations on the Facebook app. You think you're chatting with your wife, with your honey, with a, shall we say, an entrepreneur who is you're collaborating with. You have a secret business idea. It is no longer safe, especially on Facebook. 1984, George Orwell, we are here, folks. We are here. They're controlling free speech. They're trying to turn everything into a privilege. Everything I say, whether it has to do with politics or not, is political speech. Because the moment you take my speech from me, you have politicized it. Someone else's political perspective is the reason my speech is taken from me. And so therefore, everything I say, whether it's directly political or not, is political in nature and is protected under the First Amendment. But they're trying to take that from people and convince you. They're trying to convince you and me and everybody that our speech is not protected and that we can be silenced and shut up. This is going to be an ugly fight on many, many fronts. Electronically, on the street, in your job, at church, at the store, in your own home. They're trying to control us. That speaks a lot about how close we are to shit hitting the fan. So, top news story. Ruth Bader Ginsburg went under the knife. She is an ancient fossil on the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court. She went in and had some sort of surgery on one or both of her lungs for cancer. Now, I am going to say again, as I've said in the past, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg could not pass a competency test. I don't know how she is allowed to continue to serve as a Supreme Court justice who is supposed to interpret the Constitution and see if laws are being applied properly. But the Supreme Court is about legislating from the bench. And the left, the lunatic, communist, socialist, screwball fascist left, cannot abide losing RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the woman who wants 12-year-old girls to decide who they want to have sex with, regardless of age. Sick, twisted wench, and she needs to go away. Now, what does that have to do with shit hitting the fan? Well, you know, Trump, in his first 2 years, has had 2 Supreme Court nominees make it to the bench. The first one, I don't think anyone even remembers. I think his name is Gorsuch, right? No one remembers him. It's just one. Number 2 was Kavanaugh. And they realized, the left that is, realized they're going to lose control of the Supreme Court. It's going to be heavily favored in conservatives. And they lost their fucking stuff over Kavanaugh. They pulled out Christine Blasey Ford. They fabricated lies. They made our justice system, our selection system, everything looked just comically dumb. The lunatic left was out in droves. They weren't just anti-Kavanaugh. They were anti-man. They were anti-patriarchy. They were anti-Christian. They're anti-Constitution. Now, when they lose Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my best guess is going to be a judge who's a woman and is a Catholic. I think she's Trump's #1 selection to step up and take Ruth Bader Ginsburg's chair after it's been fumigated. And you bet the left is going to lose their shit. And I really do hope, and I think they should review, I think they should review Roe v. Wade. Now, I have heard, and it makes me fucking sick to death, I have heard that it's well-established case law, and there is absolutely no need to go over it again. No, it is not. You want some well-established law? It's called the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution and the Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed. How simple is that? That is case law that should be well established from the very beginning in simple English that everyone can understand. Yet the government continuously comes after our guns and says they have a right to infringe the fuck out of us. They review the Second Amendment all the time. You bet they can go back against Roe v. Wade and everything else. So you want to talk about shit hitting the fan, you talk about putting a conservative Catholic woman on the bench, and you're going to see some fireworks. It would take 2 conservative justices to rule against, to rule in favor of Roe v. Wade in order for it to stand. And that's just one topic. We are in dire, dire, dire trouble. And speaking of the Second Amendment, bump stocks this week, big deal in the news, big deal to preppers, big deal to patriots, big deal to gun rights advocates. The NRA is looking like a bunch of dunderheads. Trump is not looking good on this one. The government is assuming all sorts of authority that it doesn't have. You cannot legislate from the White House. You cannot legislate from the bench. You can legislate in Congress, but you may not violate the Second Amendment. If they want to try and overturn the Second Amendment with a constitutional provision, right, another article, or another amendment. Go for it. Bring it on. But I'm going to tell you, the closer we get to shit hitting the fan, the more the economy looks like shit, the more it looks like we're going to have some sort of altercation with China and Russia. The more the government knows they need us, the American people, out here taking bullets for them to protect their big fat asses in Washington. They cannot afford for America to lose its guns, because behind every blade of grass is a pissed off American waiting for an enemy. Now, the only problem with the government, or the problem they have with us, is they don't like the fact that we could turn those guns on them if they decide they want to become tyrants. And instead of us having to deal with a foreign enemy, we have to deal with a domestic enemy. So we're a two-edged sword to the government. We're their greatest ally and asset, and we're their biggest threat and enemy. And what does that say about people in government? Right. They cannot be trusted, because that is their mentality. We are getting very close to shit hitting the fan, and the pressure is on. Pressure. Right? Now, if a punch is coming this way and a punch is coming that way, you can see it. You can see the movement, the momentum, the threat. When you've got two objects pushing against each other with incredible amounts of force, but nothing appears to be moving really, that pressure, that energy is still built up, and it's waiting to be released. So, to move on, I made notes today because it has been one hell of a week, professionally, personally, and in the news, right? So, let's start with, at the top of the list, or top of this particular list, in Syria. We're done in Syria. Trump says, get the troops out of there, right? A lot of the military-industrial complex and their puppets in Congress are not happy with this. People who want the oil to make it from the Middle East to go up through up through Syria and into Europe via pipeline, they're not happy with Syria retaining control of itself. Right? Russia and Syria have won, and that pipeline is not going to make it, which means Russia is going to have pipeline energy running into Europe, and they're going to be the mass beneficiaries of this victory over ISIS. It's not an American and Syrian victory over ISIS. It's a Russian and Syrian victory over ISIS. This has been one of the most convoluted, stupid conflicts in history, because we had proxy army for Russia fighting proxy army for the U.S. against a proxy corporate fascist army called ISIS Al-Qaeda, all fighting in the same area. It is incredible the amount of people that have been killed and hurt and displaced, the amount of lies. And Gary, you owe me another $1 because Bashar al-Assad is still in charge in Syria. And while I'm throwing a couple of names out there, John, Ronan, Dean, Chris, Mark, Steve, Crimey, I can't remember everybody. I hate trying to remember everybody. Okay, anyways, the military-industrial complex, because we're out of Syria, they're not going to sell as many arms. Don't worry, I'm sure another war will break out soon. The oil pipeline, just keep putting your oil on a boat and you're going to have to sell it for less profit. All right. Oh, General Mattis quits. Mad Dog Mattis, General Mattis, United States Marine Corps, quits as Secretary of Defense. Is it related to Syria? Is it going to be blamed on the Syria decision by the Trump administration? I'll tell you what. I've got two sons, 19 and 17 years old, and I cannot tell you how happy I would be if my sons were in the military and they were over in Syria and they were part of the armed forces, right? Our national interests being protected by them. Because I don't know what our national interests are in Syria. I see the corporate interests, and so you might see a little bit of national interest behind that. But I don't really see a national interest there. And I would not want my sons in such a place. Defending our nation is important. That is what counts, defending our nation. Defending our nation's interests. Can't we make a better deal? Can't we bargain? Can't we pay for what we want? We have to use the military to beat up on everybody and threaten them all the time to get what we want? Is that, well, it sounds like bully tactics, does it not? Well, that's what we get. So are we getting further from shit hitting the fan with the Syria decision? I'm going to tell you what, the answer is no. The reason is, someone might say, but John, that's good news. No, it's not. Because the people that lost the military-industrial complex, the energy complex, right? The oil industry, they are not happy with this loss. They are not happy with the U.S. pulling out. They wanted that, which means we could see a false flag because of it to get us back in there or to punish the United States or the people within it for what has happened, or rather didn't happen in their favor. This world is not about me and you. It is not about our children or our grandchildren. It's about them and their money and their power, and they don't give a rat's ass about us. And they will punish us. Something to think about. Something to think about. I tell you. When you could take otherwise a piece of good news and then see the bad news in it, sheesh. What kind of world do we live in, right? Oh, man. Where to go next? Dean, where to go next? A friend of mine in Vegas sent me a joke today. Got enough to talk about this week, John? I think so, man. Indeed. All right. So, everyone loves to look at the United States as this powerhouse of industry and production and creation, because we used to be. And we've been riding on that reputation for a long, long, long time. But we haven't been that powerhouse of industry. And I know Trump has tried to do his best to get corporations to come back, and they have to a certain degree. But we've seen a lot of bad things happen and bad news. This December, the trading in the stock market for this December, just 2 days ago, was the absolute worst since 1932. So, back then, what was going on? Well, in 1929, we had the great stock market crash. The nation was plagued with problems. Economic, financial, monetary. The government declared a state of national emergency under FDR. We had the beginning of the Great Depression just after that 1932 December. The Depression started long before they declared it, but, they like to hold out and see if they can fix things. So we had quite a bit going on back then, and we've got quite a bit now, do we not? Right, we had the crash of 07, 08, 09, followed by cash printing, quantitative easing. And they've been sputtering along and screwing with rates and fucking around here and there. And here we are, the worst December since then, since 1932. Are we getting close to shit hitting the fan? You bet. The international pressure for war is as high as it was in the 1930s. Just before World War II started. There are so many similarities here that it is astounding. The government losing control of itself and assuming for itself powers and authority beyond what are prescribed in the Constitution. Those happened back in the 1930s when they declared gold was illegal for me and you, citizens, to have, even though the Constitution clearly states that only gold and silver shall be money, currency. That's right. And here we are today with things like the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, and the Patriot Act. These laws that give the governments super constitutional, extra constitutional, beyond the constitutional powers and authority plus the ability to propagandize us. That is, use their authority, means, methods, and techniques, and funding to tell us lies. Oh yeah, we are engaged in a psyop, a psychological war, as well as an economic war, and a medicinal war, and a ecological war with our own government, and from government to government. We are in big heap trouble. All right, so let's take a look. Well, you know, Trump looked like he was backing down, pussing out, being a baby, giving up, quitting because of or over the wall. You know, this whole government shutdown thing. It looked like it was going to go the way the Democrats wanted, you know. And then Trump, he grew some spine, some backbone, and said, hey, wait a minute. We're going to pass the wall funding in the House, and we're going to lay it at the feet of the Senate Democrats because the Republicans do not have 60 votes. And you know, just last night, midnight, you know, unless something happened that I'm not aware of, the government shut down, right? Because Schumer and the Democrats will not vote to spend a measly $5.7 billion to protect our southern border, right? Do you lock your car? Do you leave your keys in the ignition? Well, you know, a really good thief will work really hard, and they don't care if your car is locked or if you leave the keys in or not. They'll steal your car anyway if they really want to, but you're going to stop 99.999% of people who would otherwise see an unlocked car with keys in the ignition and drive away and steal it. Okay, now, why do you lock the door in your house? Well, it's so no one, right, just walks right up, lets themselves in, and steals all your shit. You make it harder for them by putting up obstructions. The wall on the southern border is about obstructing 99.999% of those who want to get across and make it extremely difficult for people to do it illegally. And on our side of the wall, where there's a lot less stuff to watch, now you can look for tunneling. You can use much more effectively FLIR. That's right, the government uses FLIR with patrols and helicopters and stuff, and patrol our damn border. Everyone who's been put to work overseas, in Afghanistan, in Iran, I'm sorry about that. We don't have any troops in Iran. Mistake. Really, there's not one American GI or military advisor in Iran. Iraq is what I meant to say. In Syria, I would much rather have them here protecting our country on our southern border, and when they're not busy doing that, paying them and having them spend that money not in a cantina in Afghanistan. I would rather have them spending that on cantinas on American soil and keeping those dollars here at home. Anyways, so Trump said, fuck it, we're going to do the wall. We're going to do the government shutdown. If you think that the Democrats aren't going to throw a giant tizzy over this, they're going to blame Trump. Trump is going to blame them. The mainstream fake news is going to blame Trump and blame you for supporting Trump. But it's going to push us closer to shitting the fan, is it not? This isn't love and kisses and dancing and holding hand and ring around the rosy. This is nothing but fuck you politics. It's happened before, and a government shutdown is not going to cause shit to hit the fan. What's going to cause shit to hit the fan is the reaction the people on the street have. They start protesting and throwing a fit. The police get in their face. Someone gets shot. Then it's martial law. Then it's on. They try gun confiscation. You know, that is the way of shit hitting the fan. Riots, burning, looting, out of control protests, purge-like murder and behavior. And it's coming. So what's going on in Washington? It's all theater. It is bullshit. They're a bunch of loudmouth politicians, right? All they care about is themselves. And it's crazy. But when it comes to the shooting side, if chaos breaks out, do you think bump stocks are going to matter? I really don't, right? I really don't. But the government is using and continues to use sophistry. That is changing the meaning of words to suit themselves and to suit their agenda. And trust me, all politicians have the agenda of increasing their power, their control, their domination over not only us the people, but over what we're arguing about. This entire nation, and the entire world for that matter, is hastily and busily engaged in dividing ourselves. Right now, gun advocates, people who are pro-gun in America, are at each other's throats over the bump stock, over high-capacity magazines, over common sense gun control. What is common sense? What isn't? I tell you what common sense is. It's called the Second Amendment. If you don't like it, go get it overturned, right, by passing a constitutional amendment that gets rid of the Second Amendment. And you're going to see nothing but blood and hair on soapboxes everywhere because of the screaming matches that will occur. But this is a game. It's theater that's being played, right? And there's this big concern over whether or not Americans will reach down and find out if they have testicles. They'll reach in the back and see if they have a spine. And that's where we're heading, because people are broke. They are fundamentally broke. They're broke spiritually. They're broke financially. They are psychologically broke. Our national pride is shattered because no one can agree what it means to be an American anymore. Right? Dissension used to be something that you could proudly say. I'm a dissenting American. I'm complaining about the government. Well, no. You can only complain if the left likes it. That is why they're shutting us up here on YouTube and other alternative news and opinion sources. So, there we are. What else happened this week? The Fed, the Federal Reserve, they raised interest rates again. Now, they raised them up to 2.25%. Or is it 2.5%? Doesn't really matter, because inflation is at 3%. So we're still, when you take out the inflation, we're still operating at negative interest rates. In other words, our economy should be getting juiced, still stimulated in a positive way, because of the way they figure these numbers. But it's not. Right? It is not being juiced. It is coming to a grinding halt. This week we saw nothing but trouble. Wednesday and Thursday I was able to predict where the Dow was going to close because I've developed an understanding of how much they allow it to go up and then how much they allow it to come down every day. I was way off on Friday. Shit. It was much lower than I predicted for Friday. But Wednesday, Thursday I started getting accurate. I can sense and see where this is going. They're trying to slowly bring the market down instead of a panicked exodus, right? They do not want it to come down too fast because that will scare everybody. So Wednesday, Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Powell, came out and they calculated what he should say, how he should say it, what he should hint at, and what he did not make the market happy. Financiers, investors, the people, they did not like his attitude. So on Friday, I believe his name is John Williams of the New York Federal Reserve, the regional bank, he came out and tried walking back, taking it back, readjusting, massaging Powell's words. Oh no, we're not all that hawkish, meaning we're going to raise rates that many more times. We're going to completely try and feel things out as we go. We're not dead set in our ways of raising the interest rates. Well, they've actually said they're kind of dead set in their ways. They want to raise those rates as high as they can so when the market absolutely collapses, they can dump them instantly and say, we're stimulating the economy, and then throw more quantitative easing, helicopter money, universal basic income, all of these tools of the bank to stop an absolute collapse are in place now. Nothing is allowed to happen unless they want it to happen or know it's going to happen. And then it happens and they've got their answer. Now, the smart money, the intelligent money, knows that when it collapses and they throw all this money at it, it's not going to work. It is going to have a finite life. And they're going to have to reboot the monetary and financial systems and then try and reboot the economy. And in the meantime, you and I, all of us, we're going to be plunged into a scary world. And we're getting closer. This week's Federal Reserve action, their actions have scared the market to death. Now, if these things had happened, I would say, hey, we may not get shit hitting the fan. Not the way I'm afraid of. What happened to the D-class? It was said that it was going to happen over a month before the election. Yeah, way back in October. The D-class is coming. We're going to declassify those FISA documents. And then I was thinking, if they're going to do it, they better do it before the election so they can embarrass the Democrats. D-class is coming, D-class is coming, D-class is coming. It didn't fucking happen. And now we're in this position where, well, okay, now you have to declass and take the power away from the Democrats before they take power in the House. And what else comes with that? You have to start arresting people. For what? Election fraud? For treason and sedition? For participation in the silent or sneaky little shitty coup that was done against Trump? But these arrests, I mean, I hope they come. I want them to come. But I'm not invested emotionally and psychologically in them coming. I'm expecting them not to come. Why? Because it's been over 2 years since Trump was elected, and we still haven't seen the major arrests that we know are completely and wholly justifiable. We knew before the election that Hillary Clinton had committed serious felonies and possible treason because of what she had done with that server in her basement that was unprotected, that was being hacked by the Chinese, that gave up our super secret confidential spy networks in China, along with others, very sensitive data. It was just there for the taking. And she knew it was wrong. And by the way, when I go to court, I'm sure if I'm arrested and I am told, I say, look, I didn't know that was illegal. They're going to say ignorance of the law is no excuse. That is what the law tells you when you stand before the man at the bench, at the bar. And I'm not talking about the kind of bar where we go get a scotch. I'm talking about that other kind of bar, right? The the barrister's bar, the courtroom. She should have been arrested the moment, the day that Trump was inaugurated, was the president had the authority to direct the Attorney General to take the information that was already admitted to and that they had also investigated and gathered, because I know they have this information. Don't you? Can you believe for a second that the government doesn't have the goods on James Comey, on Hillary, on Bill, on Loretta Lynch, on Susan Rice, on Barack Hussein, Barry Soetoro Obama, on James Comey, on John Brennan, on Eric Holder? How about how about Joe Biden? Creepy Joe Biden, right? If we had a declassification, if we had arrests, I might say, yeah, things, they're going okay. They're cleaning up the swamp. But the swamp is not really being cleaned up. And every time they drain a couple of small animals or monsters out of it, you know, these are small-time ones. We need the big-time ones out of there. You know, and after January 1st, right, whoa, then is when, you know, they keep putting a date and a promise out there. All of these people who believe, you know, that our nation can be salvaged. And I hope it does, and I wish it could be, but I'm not betting on it. I'm a prepper. I'm betting on history, that after January 1st, arrests will not happen. I'm betting after January 1st, the election fraud will stand. I'm betting after January 1st, the Democrats will take control in January of the House, and they will start impeachment proceedings instantly. They will start more investigations instantly. They will take other investigations and get rid of them. And I hope Mr. Whitaker, and I hope the Attorney General, and I hope Trump actually fight them the whole way. But even if they're fighting them, that's exactly what we have. is a giant, massive free-for-all of stupidity and fuckstickery coming out of D.C. Meanwhile, in the United States, we have racial tension, we have financial tension, we have real estate tension, we have professional employment tension, right? We have massive problems, all of them in every sector. Talk about an end of the year. Are we getting closer to shit hitting the fan? Yeah, Dean, we got it, buddy. It's coming. It's coming. To me, it's inevitable, and I am hoping for a shit it's the fan light. I think I'll ask Santa Claus for a shit it's the fan light, because I really don't look forward to it. What I look forward to is the problems being solved. But the way to solve those problems is going to be painful. There's going to be tremendous loss of wealth, loss of life, loss of liberty. And I'm hoping that when we get through it, if we can get through it, we will still have this concept of rights and a belief that there is a difference between government and God. And that it's understood that the people are the ones who create and authorize and give permission to the government. And it is not the government that gives us permission, right, and privilege. It's the other way around. The government serves at our delight, at our will and pleasure. And it is their privilege to serve us. It is their privilege to serve us. So you guys, this will be the last video for YouTube before Christmas. So I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, and I want to thank everybody for playing as nice as you do on here. I want to thank everybody for supporting us. And you have a job assignment. Get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. Understand the 10-mile radius around you. Because when shit does hit the fan, what happens in that 10-mile radius is going to affect you directly. Everything else will be indirect, right? Because we can't change what's going on in D.C. or Moscow or London or Paris. We can't change any of that. You know, but we can, because it doesn't really affect us directly. It's the people banging on your front door or walking by in the street with torches and pitchforks. That's what's going to affect us. So get prepared now. It is my desire that everyone that has an understanding of the dangers that are imminent at this point. We are now in imminent danger. It is not in the far-flung future. It is imminent. So please do your best. Get ready. And guess what? I'll be talking to everybody very, very soon. Merry Christmas. God bless. And of course, Semper Fi.